Welcome back, everyone, to The Deep Dive. I'm really excited because today we are kicking off Season 3 of the Schaeffer Dialogues. And we're starting with a really foundational book by Francis Schaeffer, He Is There and He Is Not Silent. Our mission today really is to lay some groundwork. We want to get a handle on the book's core purpose and, importantly, clarify some key ideas Schaeffer lays out in the appendices. We're basically setting the stage for thinking about, well, how we know things and how we know them.
That's epistemology, right? The whole basis of knowledge. Absolutely.
And starting there is just so crucial with someone like Schaeffer. It's easy to jump into the applications, but these foundations are key. And, this isn't just some dry academic thing. These are questions about reality, about meaning that really hit home for how you listening right now see the world. It affects your whole worldview. So today we've got three main areas we're going to unpack. First up, the book's purpose. Then we'll dive into Appendix A, that's about propositional revelation. Sounds technical, but we'll break it down. And finally, Appendix B, which draws this really interesting distinction between different kinds of faith. Okay, let's dive in. So first things first, the purpose of He Is There and He Is Not Silent. Where does this book fit in Schaeffer's work? Well, it's Volume 1, Book 3. It comes right after The God Who Is There and Escape from Reason. And there's a common mix-up people make, right? Thinking Escape from Reason came first.
Yeah, exactly. But no, The God Who Is There was written first. That's the one where he really lays out his terms, his basic argument. Escape from Reason then kind of applies those ideas, looking at philosophy, nature, grace, arguing modern culture got, skewed way back.
Oh, okay. So The God Who Is There is the real starting point for the trilogy.
Right. And what Schaeffer was aiming for, at Lewari was this balanced Christianity. It wasn't just about getting the theology right, the exegesis. It had to be real, lived out, beautiful even. He had this idea that if you start with the Christian system, as revealed in the Bible, propositionally revealed, then you find that truth touches everything, every part of life. There's a song to it, he says.
Truth and a song. I like that. It connects to why he calls these first three books a unified base. He actually says that without this base, his later works are kind of floating a few feet off the ground.
That's exactly it. You need this foundation to really get what he's doing later. And the core question in this book, He Is There and He's Not Silent, is that fundamental one. How do we know? And how do we know we know? It's all about epistemology. And he's emphatic. Unless our epistemology is right, everything is going to be wrong. It's that critical.
And the title really sums it up, doesn't it? The infinite personal God is there, but also He is not silent. That second part changes everything.
It really does. And it's a direct challenge to a lot of the pessimism in modern thought. You think of someone like Wittgenstein in his Tractatus, basically saying when it comes to values, meaning there's just silence.
Or like that Bergman film, The Silence.
Exactly, that same kind of existential quiet. So why push back against that? Why is challenging that silence so important? Well, if all you have is silence, then meaning, purpose, even real communication, it all starts to feel, shaky.
Absolutely, which explains why he insists these three books are a conscious unity, reflecting the Bible's unity. And this one, dealing with how we know, is a vital part of making the case for Christianity in the modern world.
Okay, so that sets the stage. Let's get into Appendix A.
The title alone is pretty bold, is Propositional Revelation Nonsense. Just to clarify, propositional revelation basically means God communicating specific truths in words and statements.
Right. And Schaeffer's point here isn't to debate all the tiny details. It's about the starting point, the presuppositions. You can't even talk details, he says, if the underlying assumptions aren't compatible.
So what's the modern view he's contrasting with?
Well, he says for a lot of modern thinking, even modern theology, the whole idea of God speaking definite truths, propositionally, and the idea of biblical infallibility, it's just seen as, meaningless. Kind of like how sin and guilt in a real objective sense are often dismissed. It stems from different fundamental beliefs about what's even possible. He questions if their starting points are adequate.
Okay, so how does he counter that? What's the Christian starting point, the Christian presupposition, as he calls it?
It starts with the idea that there was a personal beginning. Someone was there first and made everything else. And this someone would have to be infinite. Now, sure, you still have the mystery of an eternally existing infinite personal God, but Schaeffer argues that if you grant that, a lot of other problems dissolve. I mean, every worldview has to explain existence somehow, right? Something had to be there.
And if you start there with an infinite personal God, what follows logically?
Well, first, if this infinite personal God made us finite beings on his own wavelength, in his image, then our own personality makes sense. It has a source. Second, communication isn't unthinkable. Why couldn't an uncreated personal being talk to created personal being?
It wouldn't be exhaustive communication, obviously.
No, of course not. Just like when you and I talk, it's not exhaustive.
Mhm.
But we still consider it true, right? So communication from God could be true, even if not total. Unless, Schaeffer adds, God were a liar or just capricious.
Right. Makes sense.
And third, if this God actually cared about the people he made, it's perfectly reasonable. He might tell them things, propositional things about the world, about history, things we couldn't figure out just on our own.
And this connects directly to what the Bible claims for itself.
Exactly. He says, the above is, of course, what the Bible claims for itself concerning propositional revelation. It claims God inspires specific writers to convey exact truths, using their own styles, yes, but getting his message across.
What about verbal communication, like actual words?
Yeah, he addresses that too. If God made us as language-using beings, why is it unthinkable he'd use language? He points to examples like Jesus speaking to Saul on the road to Damascus in Hebrew, or God speaking in Sinai.
So to rule that out requires different starting assumptions.
Precisely. It usually means you've already bought into naturalistic presuppositions, the idea that everything is just matter and energy, no supernatural needed. And people often try to mask those presuppositions using religious words, but without the substance. It leads to this vague faith where you say, I believe, but you can't really finish the sentence meaningfully.
A faith without an object, almost.
Kinda, yeah. And he finds it really odd, this idea that God would give us religious truth in a book that's grounded in history, if that history wasn't actually true or reliable. The Bible constantly points to verifiable history as, like, proof. It doesn't separate religious ideas from real events.
So the takeaway from Appendix A is huge. Your starting point, impersonal stuff, or a personal God, dictates what even seems possible when it comes to knowing anything, especially knowing God.
It's absolutely fundamental. It's the lens.
It really makes you think about your own assumptions, doesn't it?
It should. And Schaeffer uses that powerful analogy of those Francis Bacon paintings, the screaming figures in the void.
Yeah, very stark.
He sees that as picturing the total confusion of the impersonal worldview. You can scream, but it's just lostness, damnation even. But start with a personal beginning, and suddenly communication makes sense between us and from God.
Yeah.
The universe isn't silent. Okay, so that's presuppositions and revelation. So what about faith? Let's look at Appendix B.
Right, Appendix B. This is where Schaeffer really digs into the word faith and argues it gets used in two totally opposite ways. He uses these two Alps analogies. Let's start with the first one, the leap of faith idea. Okay, so you're stuck high on a mountain, fog rolls in, ice is forming, the guide says it's hopeless, you'll freeze.
Grim picture.
Very. You're lost. Then someone suggests, what if I just drop down? Maybe there's ledge 10 feet below. The guide says, maybe you'd survive the night.
That's what happens.
Someone just does it, hangs and drops into the fog. With absolutely no knowledge or any reason to support his action, just a blind plunge.
And that, Schaeffer says, is one modern way people use faith, post-Kierkegaard. A leap precisely because reason can't help. It's irrational.
Okay, so that's faith type 1. What's the contrast? The second Alps story.
Right. The second analogy represents, for Schaeffer, historic Christian faith.
Yeah.
The setup is similar, stuck, fog, ice, but this time you hear a voice. And the voice says something like, I can't see you, but I hear you. I know where you are. I've lived here my whole life, know every foot of these mountains. There is a ledge 10 feet below you. Drop, you'll survive. I'll get you in the morning.
Okay, but you don't just drop immediately this time.
No, that's the crucial difference. You ask questions. You try to figure out, does this guy know what he's talking about? Is he trustworthy? Is he an enemy?
Like asking his name.
Exactly. And Schaeffer gives the example. If his name is one known to be from a local mountain family, that would count a great deal. You're gathering evidence, reasons to trust.
So you investigate first.
You investigate. You ask sufficient questions. And then when I became convinced by his answers, then I would hang and drop. See the difference? This is also faith, trusting the voice, acting on it, but it's completely different from the blind leap. It's informed trust.
Yeah. One is a leap from reason, the other is a step based on reason and evidence.
Precisely. He even says they probably shouldn't use the same word. They're so opposite.
So for the listener, the point is, the Christian faith isn't supposed to be that blind leap.
Not according to Schaeffer in historic Christianity. Because God isn't silent. We're invited, even expected, to ask the adequate and sufficient questions. Reason isn't the enemy of faith. It's a pathway to it.
And what kind of questions are we talking about? Not just little details.
No, the big ones too. Questions about the universe, its complexity, its origin. Questions about why humans are the way we are, our sense of meaning, morality. Schaeffer argues Christianity offers coherent answers to those fundamental questions.
So it's about a reasoned belief, understanding who God is, who we are.
And our need for him, yeah. Understanding we're made in his image but fallen, and that Christ's work provides the solution. It's a whole worldview grounded in the reality that God is there and he has spoken. It asks you to think, to consider the evidence.
That's a really helpful clarification of faith. So maybe a final thought to leave everyone with.
Well, building on that presupposition idea, given how radically different the outcomes are depending on whether you start with personality or impersonality at the beginning of everything, how might really digging into your own deepest assumptions, your own starting point, change how you approach, well, everything? Not just religion, but knowledge, communication, meaning in your everyday life. It's worth thinking about.
That is a deep question, a good one to chew on. And if you do want to chew on these ideas more and continue this kind of dialogue, definitely check out Joseph R. Miller's website. It's morethancake.org. morethancake.org. Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks so much for joining us. Keep digging, keep asking those questions, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Schaeffer Dialogues.